This is Orris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. It's for women too. Each week, I bring you a special guest to help you create that life that you imagine for yourself and those that you love. We talk anti-aging medicine, personal growth, relationships, and sex, vices, and other topics that many don't want to talk about but need to. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you have to be old. Also, if you want to know 3 ways to get laid more frequently without begging, go to oldguytalks.com and opt in. When you do, you're going to get my informative video on 3 simple things you can do to get laid more frequently without begging, so you don't have to turn in your man card. And ladies, you may want your man to know these things, because I think you'll like it too. Additionally, you'll be notified weekly when a new podcast episode is ready for you to consume. Periodically, I will share with you other stuff that will help you create that life that you want for yourself and those that are important to you. Don't want to miss anything? Be sure to subscribe, share, and review this podcast. This is Orris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. And, well, what part of that is? Sex. Yes, we said that. We said that 3-letter word, S-E-X. And today I'm very glad to have Stacey Murphy. And Stacey is your love and intimacy coach. She's better known as the Queen of Juicy Love. That's always, you always want your love to be juicy. That's it just creates a great visual. In 2021, Stacey was listed on Yahoo's top 10 love coaches for U.S. and Canada. She's consistently featured on ABC, CW, Fox News Radio, and iHeart Radio, just to name a few. And she considers herself a recovered perfectionist who was slaying life the hard way with masculine energy. And now she teaches professional women how to enjoy life and have a way coming from their feminine power. This allows her clients to live in harmony with their beloved versus being in competition with them. Stacey shows women how to integrate love, sex, money into a powerful cocktail. Another nice word, cocktail. I love cocktails. Contributing to relationship success that will stand the test of time.
Yeah.
So welcome, Stacey. I've been looking forward to this. I've seen you on a couple other podcasts, and so we're glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here, Orris. Very much so.
So I always start my podcast, my conversation with a question. What is the most important thing you've done today?
What's the most important thing that
that you've done today?
Being present and happy and helping all of the women that need a little bit of juice and sass in their life. I've been talking to ladies this morning. I've been juiced up, and that is what I've been doing today, and that's been making me really happy.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about the challenges. First of all, the challenges in relationships. And you mentioned that there are 3 things that are common in terms of where the problem areas are. What are those?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because if you know what the challenges are in relationships, and if you can deal with those issues prior to, it'll definitely allow your relationship to stand the test of time. So the first big thing is incompatibility. And these are actually the top 3 reasons relationships fail, right? And the first one's incompatibility. It's, men not understanding women, women not understanding men. And it's like they're in 2 different opposing corners in the ring, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And it's like, we want to play nice together in the sandbox, but we don't know how at times. And so what happens is that lends to that incompatibility, which is the top reasons relationships fail. And then the second one is actually money and then sex, right? And those are the top 3 reasons. So it's like, if you have, sexual inhibitions before going into a relationship, you want to heal those sexual inhibitions, because they'll just kind of show up in your relationship and they can kind of blow up in a big way. And that doesn't make for a juicy relationship that can stand the test of time. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think the incompatibility is an interesting thing. I talk about this with men. Uh, if you are incompatible,
Yes.
it's okay to break off the relationship, but you don't have to make the other person bad. It's a
Correct.
it's a because people feel like they have to make that person bad. I was engaged to a woman, uh, very nice woman, very smart, beautiful. She was a physician, all those things, but we were incompatible. And actually, she was so smart, she had us go to premarital counseling where it was discovered we shouldn't be married. We parted friends, and we parted on good terms. My wife and I actually went to her wedding, and she came to our wedding, and so
Mhm.
it was it was a good party. But we didn't have to make each other bad because she wasn't a bad person. She was
Sure.
actually she was a good person. So how you know in this time there's a
Mhm.
lot of um, edginess, controversy, and things like that. What do you see as the main difference between men and women?
Well, there are a lot of differences. I mean, there when you go main differences, like where do I start? What happens is, and first of all, talking about your situation that happened, that's considered a conscious separation.
Mhm.
And those do exist. And that's with people that are also emotionally mature, right? You don't have to make the other person the bad guy. Like my partner I've been with for 6 years, I stepped back from that relationship last year, but we're still good friends, right? I literally just saw him yesterday and stuff like that, because you don't have to make somebody out to be the enemy. And if your relationship, because everything, people ebb and everything ebbs and flows, people change, people are not static, they're not like a statue, right, that will
Mhm.
never change. And so what happens is things in your relationship are also going to change. And when you find out that you're kind of looking for different things or going in different directions, or like you said, you're not compatible, you can part with peace. And if anything, you have a friend for life, or you can have a friend
Mhm.
for life. But in terms of the differences, I tell everybody, just like John Gray's book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, that is so true. So I always tell ladies, it's important for you to understand the terrain of Mars, right? The ebbs and the flows, because men think very differently than women. Men act very differently than women. And primarily, it's driven first and foremost about by our biology,
Mhm.
simply by our biology, the hormones that we have coursing through our veins you as a man and myself as a woman, that literally determines how we act, how we think, how we interact with other people, how we navigate life. So if you don't understand, Mars and that terrain, you're actually going to be operating from like a half deck of sorts, and you're not going to be going with the full entire piece of information. So it really is about understanding, as a woman, understanding your nature, your divine feminine, what you bring into the relationship. And then you look to a man in his divine masculine, so he can show up for you in the relationship, and you're showing up for each other, right? So in your divine feminine, you can show up for your man and vice versa. But there are so many differences. And it really, like I said, I teach this, it's driven primarily by our biology. Testosterone in men makes them think differently.
Mhm.
And I always tell women, men think in terms of value, women think in terms of quality. Men are really straightforward in their communication, and women like to add little diagrams and details and all this other stuff. And so what happens is that right there, when you understand the differences and how we ebb and flow and how we click, then you're more successful in your relationship. You won't stand in these landmines that really contribute to the incompatibility piece in a lot of relationships.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the whole hormone thing is actually a very interesting one. I've had several guests talk um, about what's going on with men and their hormones, and there is a generational decline in testosterone in men. And
Yes.
I had on a guest on one of my shows, Keith Nichols. He's a very knowledgeable doctor who optimizes men's testosterone, and he said something that was very shocking to me. He was saying that men in their 20s and 30s are showing up in his clinic with lower baseline testosterone levels than men in their 50s, which is just like because there's all sorts of endocrine disrupting compounds, but it's it's really kind of affecting a lot of things. Um, So women are now in a challenging situation where they are, many of them are powerful in business, they're executives or professionals and things like that, or taken care of, and they assume many of those, I guess we'd call those masculine traits in those business environments, and then they have to be, they want to be feminine. How does that, how do people reconcile, how do women reconcile those two different kind of roles?
Well, what happens is the short answer has been very difficult for a lot of women to reconcile that, and they haven't. And so that also is what is part of the challenge that we're experiencing in relationships. And it's not a woman's fault. And I don't want anyone to hear this and think there's any fault or finger pointing. So let me kind of explain where a lot of this is coming from. What happens is, when we went through the second wave of the feminist movement, right now, if people are not aware, we're like in the fourth wave of the feminist movement, right? So just to keep count of that. So when I'm talking about the second wave of the feminist movement, that was back in like the 60s, 70s, right? Burning bras and all this other stuff like that. And, women were told, if you want to gain respect in this society, if you want to get ahead in life, if you want to achieve and not to be beholden to someone else for your livelihood, you got to do it like a dude, right? And so that's where it was, kick ass, take names, and all this other stuff. Where back in the day, you remember the commercial was, I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan. Remember that
Yeah.
commercial? Well, a lot of women didn't realize they would be frying their man in the pan as well, right? That was the part they didn't realize what was going to go on. And so because they had to tap into their masculine energy so they can get respect on the outside world, what happened was it inadvertently created generations and generations to follow of self-loathing women because they didn't know how to be feminine anymore because their mothers stopped teaching their daughters the ways of women. And because it was seen as objectification, you're not going to be taken seriously, people are going to think that you're weak. So they stopped doing that. And in stopping and doing that, what was unintended, what they didn't realize was it literally was teaching women how to not embrace their feminine energy. So they did this pendulum swing, literally swung all the other way, where women were now tapping into that masculine energy. And yes, we saw advances in our careers and things in society, which unfortunately we still have to fight for that. We're still having to fight for equality, which is like crazy in 2021, but we're doing that on all levels. It's not just gender, it's race and everything else. But what happened was it really created this pendulum swing. Then women got stuck in the masculine energy, like they got stuck in that gear. And because they stopped learning how to be the ways of women at home, they totally got disconnected from who they are, which then affected their relationships, because then they weren't women being in their feminine energy in their relationships. They were a woman being in their masculine energy in their relationships. So then it turned into this. That's where major power struggles started coming up in relationships, because it was like two dudes in the relationship with each other. So men, in most instances, they didn't change. So they were still playing that role in their relationships, but women changed. Now, as time has gone on, men have changed. That is also what's lending to the lower testosterone, because men in our modern society, they don't have those rites of passage that they used to when they were younger, where they had those rites of passage where they went from boys to a man. And so they were taught the ways of men by their fathers and everything else like that. And so that whole entire thing started getting disrupted. And so now we're seeing with millennials as well as Gen Zers, the men are having lower testosterone levels because there are these role reversals that were going on, and then people not knowing how to navigate it. So it's kind of being lost and things like that. So that's what's kind of going on in the soup right now.
Yeah, it's I think it's a very confusing time, especially for someone who is younger.
Yes.
When you talk about this, and I'm a firm believer in this, because you hear people say like, "Oh, I was arguing with my wife about sex." I'm thinking, and when I hear that, I'm going like, Well, how did that work out for you? Probably not really well. Just because it's strictly confrontational.
Yes.
And if you do manage to guilt her into sex, it's not going to be particularly good sex,
Nope.
and it's not going to happen very often either. But you talk about the importance of fun, because I thoroughly believe that, a lot of times people get into their lives, their careers, then kids, which, is we have two kids, and they're great. We had them later in life, which actually was a big advantage. I was 45 when my wife had, and she was 36. And so, you get all these things, and they're all of a sudden you're like day to day, you're doing you're going through routine. And somewhere along the way, you lost the ability to have fun. And
Yeah.
you've also lost the, what I consider, and again, you touch about this, the importance of to continue to be seductive in a relationship.
Yes.
Oh, that's so. Let's tell me a little bit about that, a little about what your points on fun and things like that.
Sure. I always tell everyone the things that you did, whether you're a man or a woman, right now, in my practice, I work primarily with professional women,
Mm-hmm.
teaching them how to be strong, feminine, seductive, as well as charismatic in the presence of high caliber men in both life and love. So that's who I primarily work with, but this goes both ways. So no matter whatever you did to attract your partner to you are the same things that you need to keep doing to keep your partner and to
Mm-hmm.
keep them interested. You just because you have the commitment, that doesn't mean, okay, the coast is clear, I can just coast from here. No, 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 no. It does not work that way. So I always tell people, because when you get to that point, they call it the 7-year itch for a reason, right? Because you get to know your partner so well. Many couples by 7 years, they stop dating each other, and then they get into what we call the sweatpants phase. They're not doing anything sassy and sexy with and for their partner. They throw on their sweatpants, they throw on some raggedy old t-shirt, they plop in front of the TV, and like they ask their partner, how was your day? There's nothing fun or sexy. There's nothing fun or sexy about that and things of that nature. So part of the fun is to continue to date your partner. And I always tell couples, you should have a monthly date night. If you're already doing a monthly date night, do it twice a month at least.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, like, if you have children, we all have responsibilities. Don't allow that to get in front of your relationship, because what you'll find out is you're going to be more married to your responsibilities, and then your relationship is going to go bye-bye. And then you turn out being in a sexless marriage, and then or a sexless relationship, and then that will turn out to go to either divorce or you break up. So part of it is you continue to date your partner and infusing that fun. So I have my clients what I call doing a fishbowl of fun, a fishbowl of love. So what that is, and this is how you can incorporate fun. So I'm giving everybody a tip here that they can do.
Perfect.
To keep it interesting, many times when you want to do something fun, it always comes to you when you're not trying to think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know about that. You're in the shower and oh my God, you got a great idea and you don't have any paper or pen to write anything on. It's like one of those things. So I always tell my couples to get like a little fishbowl, and this, you don't even have to be living together to do this, but get like a little fishbowl or some kind of bowl. And then what you can do on scraps of paper, the guys have blue and then the ladies have pink. Put on there what are some activities and things you would like to do. And it's always easy to think about it when you're not trying to think of what we're going to do for date night, because this is what always happens. When you want to do something for date night and you're sitting there thinking, you go, oh, what do we want to do? And everyone's mind goes blank. And then they end up just doing the same old that they did last week. And then it gets boring. So here is when you always have this bowl, every now and then throughout the day, just throw in an idea. And then what happens is you take turns pulling out something from that fishbowl that would be fun. So one of the activities I did for one of my partners is my last partner for his birthday, took him zip lining. He had never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
He had never done that before. I was like, really? And then one other time, he had never even gone go-karting because he was from Germany, and I guess maybe they didn't have go-karts, and he had never gone go-karting. So what happened is those are fun, and we had such a good time. We were ramming each other off the road.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much fun. But stuff like that. And what happens is whoever's turn. So say, for example, it's my turn. So I would pick one of the blue pieces of paper to see what my partner would do and would like to do. And then we would go ahead and do that. But it was also a surprise because you would just pick out whatever is there and like, okay, that's what we'll do. And then when it's the other way, my partner, he would pick a pink paper, something that I was interested in doing. Because what happens is this allows to make both partners feel that they're both engaged in the activity, what's going on, by picking something. And you know, that's why they're on blue paper and pink paper, so you can know which is which. You have a fair, it feels very fair that you're each doing an activity that the partner would like to do. You're fully engaged and you're not doing the same thing all the time. And so whenever you do an activity, you put it in a separate bowl, so you're not repeating the same thing. And when you're doing this, if you have like, say you have 26 things in there, can you think of, like Oris, can you think of 13 things and your wife think of 13 things?
Sure.
I'm sure you can do that. Well, guess what? You just have some fun activities for 26 weeks of the year. Every other week, you have something different that you would do. And the other thing I tell my clients, put in your fun time, your vacation time on your calendar first. Make your relationship a priority, right? Even if you have children, make your relationship a priority.
Yeah, I think so. And talk about fun time vacations. A family trip is not a vacation.
No,
it is not. Do not confuse those. When my wife had our second daughter, we went for Christmas to family, and between the carts, the cribs, the car seats, the strollers, and everything else, plus Christmas presents and luggage, we checked 17 pieces of luggage.
wow, that's
Yeah.
work. That's work.
Yeah, that is not a vacation.
No, I'm talking, the vacation I'm talking about is you and your honey getting an Airbnb by the week or by the beach, up in the mountains, whatever it is, and play naked twister, do any, and that's the other thing. It's about, also, here's the other thing about fun, is how can you reinvent things that you did when you were in your childhood, but really make it applicable for adults. So for example, when you were kids, you played with toys, right? You had dolls or trucks or whatever. Now they're adult toys, right?
Here we go.
So you just switch your toys. You had toys when you're young, now you have toys when you're adults. Well, before you were playing in the sandbox, now you have a different sandbox you can play in, called your love den, right? That's the sandbox that you're playing in. So, and then I always teach my clients to do a sexy bedtime story with their partner. That is so much fun, with a sexy bedtime story. So it's like, there's this one book that's hilarious. It's called Naughty Fairy Tales from A to Z. That's actually the book I give my clients. They're these little short stories of fairy tales, but they're all written erotically. So you'll never see Hansel and Gretel in the same way. Let's just say that. You'll never look at it in the same way. But what happens is you read that story to your partner. They're not reading it, you're actually reading. So my partner and I, we would take turns reading a story to us. That's why it has to be a short story, because you're going to forget where you left off. Because what happens is, as your partner is reading the story to you, bring that story to life. So in the story, if it says he took a rabbit mitt and waved it across her arm, get a rabbit mitt. You can get imitation, it doesn't have to be the real deal. And then when you're reading that, put that over and rub it on your partner's body as you're reading it. It brings the story to life. Well, guess what? It'll also bring her body to life. And that book will go flying to the end, and then you'll be having a good time. So that's an updated version of a bedtime story, but the adult version
that's a great tip. Now, some of the things that we've talked about work if you are, have a good relationship and you're going to great. But let's say you're in a no-sex marriage, and let's say you haven't had sex maybe in a year or two or longer, or I guess there's a couple definitions. One is sex less than 10 times a year. Some say zero sex, all that. But how do you go from no or very little to increase that. And if you're in a no sex marriage, don't expect to be in have sex 3 times a week in 60 days.
No, no. And there are multiple ways in which to answer that. Okay. There is the traditional way, and then there's the non-traditional way. So what I'll do is I'll actually cover both. One of the things also is you first have to understand why, right? Why is the sex? Now there's sex and there's intimacy. They're two different things. They're not the same thing. And I wanted to mention that first because you can have intimacy without sex, and you can have sex without intimacy. Intimacy is the emotional part, right? I love how my mentor, Dr. Ava Cadell, how she broke down intimacy phonetically. She said, intimacy is into me, see, about being able to see into another person and allowing another person to see into you, right? And so that's the emotional kind of string to it. Sex is the physical, but they both can feed each other in a very beautiful way. So one, you have to understand, is there intimacy in the relationship but no sex? So that's the first thing. And then what are some of the reasons why? Is it like a medical, or is it because there are some systemic issues in the relationship that need to be addressed? Yeah. So, because those are two totally different things. There are some marriages that are sexless because of medical reasons. The person, for whatever reason, it could be diabetes, it could be ED, it could be so many reasons as to why medically, menopause, why sex is off the table. So that's one reason there. The relationship is good, they have intimacy, but they have no sex. So that would be handled in a different way. Then the other reason why a relationship may be sexless is due to issues that are in the relationship that are not being addressed. All right. So let's kind of look there, maybe a little bit more. So here's how first want to navigate that. I want to kind of press it or cue it up this way. Communication is the key to connection. Connection is the key to intimacy, and intimacy is the key to commitment, right? And so what happens is, the first thing you look at is, what is the communication breakdown that's going on in the relationship? Like, what is going on there? What are the key issues? And so the first thing if there are systemic issues, I always recommend to everyone, don't try to solve it on your own, because many times the brain that had created the problem is not the same brain that will solve the problem that it created. So that's when you go out and seek help. And I'm not talking about from a family member either. Go to a therapist, go to a counselor, go to a coach, go to a spiritual leader, or whatever the case may be, someone that is trained to help navigate in terms of relationships. So you can get an outside perspective of what's going on, because we all have blind spots. And when we have a partner that may point out our blind spot, because we're so emotionally entwined, we don't want to hear it. So this is why you go to a professional to make each partner realize, are there blind spots in their relationship that they're not seeing? And so the first thing that needs to be repaired is communication. They really need to be on the same page, because men and women communicate very differently, very differently. And so many times we're communicating at each other and not really communicating with each other and things like that. So it's different. And then when you repair the communication, that's when you're effectively listening. You're being able to hear and listen the needs of your partner with a genuine ears, and not being colored through whatever lens that you were initially looking at it. And so what happens is you're then being able to really connect with each other again. And then from there, you can slowly rebuild the intimacy, right? Now, you didn't hear me say sex. You will slowly rebuild the intimacy, because trust needs to be reestablished. And I always tell couples, just because you're married to someone, that doesn't mean they're committed to you, right? If otherwise, we wouldn't have the divorce rate or the cheating and all the crazy that's going on in our society. So don't get too comfortable with that. I always tell people, don't get too comfortable that you have a marriage license in your hand. So you have to repair the intimacy. And intimacy allows you to get close to your partner once again, without feeling like, oh my God, is this going to turn into sex? Because that's what people freeze, especially women. That's when they freeze up. They just totally freeze. So when they re-engage and have true intimacy without feeling the pressure of sex, that actually is what allows the sex to come back into the relationship faster, because they don't feel pressured. And by not feeling pressured, they'll want to. They'll just naturally want to, because they feel they're being heard, they're being listened to, the intimacy and that connection, that emotional bond and trust is returning. So then the commitment is feeling, okay, they're feeling the commitment come back. And then with that, the sex will also return. And I also tell a lot of women, with men especially, and Oris, you can tell me if I'm hitting it on the money here, when in a committed relationship, for men specifically, and I tell this to ladies, when men have intimacy, that emotional sex is how they bond with their partner. It just kind of is like glue, that glue that glues it together and things of that nature. And when a man doesn't have intimacy in a relationship, then sex is just a physical release, for most men, because they can separate it. They can separate that.
I have a mentor that I follow, and he describes sex without a relationship as nothing more than vaginal masturbation.
It's like a blow.
It's kind of good, but it's not particularly good, and it's not emotionally satisfying at the end of the day.
Right. It's a physical release, right? It's a physical release, and it's one of those things. Okay, that's fine, and then they can move on. But when there's intimacy and the sex, that's like the glue that's like bonding. And things of that nature. And so that would be the traditional route. Okay. That would be the traditional route to go there. The non-traditional route would be to open the relationship up with this main caveat. You remember I said if there's a sexless marriage, and one of the reasons it may be a medical issue, but the couple's relationship is good and solid, that would work to open up. Because when you open up your relationship, and opening up a relationship or different dynamics, that would be polyamory, that would be swinging, with some it would be BDSM as well, right? What happens is those are successful as long as the primary relationship is solid. As long as that couple is like this, and I'm crossing my fingers for people listening to this and they can't see me on the video. I just, crossing. What happens is those are the ones where it's successful, because those relationships, couples that open up their relationship because of reasons like this, and they have a strong emotional connection and mental connection with each other, it surprised a lot of people. Those relationships are actually stronger.
Did you know that there are 76 additives that have been approved by the FDA that can be added to wines? You want a wine with shit in it that may not be good for you? Well, there is an option for wines that have been produced naturally, organically, that have been tested, that have no sugar. And when they don't have any sugar, that means that they're ketosis and intermittent fasting friendly. These wines have been produced with a great deal of care on small farms and are available to you. How do you get them? Find out by going to www.oldguytalks.com/dry farms, all one word with an S, and find out more. And with your initial order, you can get a bottle for 1 penny. That's right, a bottle for 1 penny. And they taste great. They taste great. Don't wait, don't hesitate, don't procrastinate. Get those wines now.
And people look at me like, what? I was like, how can they be stronger? They're stronger because the couple trusts each other so much, and there is deep love that is there, that each partner feels that they can be themselves, and they can be open, they can be honest, they don't have to hide anything, and their partner accepts them for who they are. Now, there are parameters, there are agreements, there are negotiations. You don't do this willy-nilly, because if you do it willy-nilly and your relationship is solid, that will actually implode it if you just
Sure.
do it willy-nilly. So there are parameters, there are boundaries for everything to make it successful. And I've worked with couples to navigate this. And couples have come to me, they want to open up their relationship. And I'm like, okay, why do you want to open it up? Oh, well, you know, the one partner was cheating. That is not the reason to open up your relationship. I tell them, no. Don't do that. And they look really disappointed when I say that. And I'm like, no, because you know what? That will actually send you to divorce court that much faster. You need to repair your primary relationship first, because that is the nucleus that is there. So opening it up is not for everybody. And it's something that you have to do in a very conscious way. And you have to have emotional maturity also in which to do it. Meaning you can't have jealousy issues. You can't have insecurity issues or any of that stuff, because if you do, it's not going to work for you. So it's not for everyone, but there are legitimate reasons why couples do that, you know, and they have a particular mindset for those. So that would be the non-traditional way that you can navigate a sexless marriage, but there are certain reasons as to in which to do that and how it can be successful.
Yeah, you know, the medical side is an interesting one, especially one ED, and I've had several guests on my program talk about ED, and there's actually all sorts of really great treatments out there now.
Yeah, and I work with men that
from
deal
from
with that as
yeah,
well.
from sonic therapy to penile implants, things like that. But I interviewed Dr. Anna Kabeka, and she's a board certified gynecologist. And the title of our program was Vaginal Atrophy and Vaginal Rejuvenation.
Yes.
And I was not aware. I kind of was, but I wasn't. It really brought it to the forefront that for many women, especially postmenopausal women, a lot of the sex is painful, and there are things that you could do.
Yes.
There are treatments out there to deal with the thinning of the vaginal walls, all sorts of stuff that are good out there. And also, we had a long discussion about lubricants, which is also a big topic. And guys and girls, if you're buying your lubricant at your local pharmacy,
No, don't
a
do
lot
that.
of chemicals that are not good for you. There's a lot of chemicals.
I tell everybody, if they're selling it at, like you said, they're selling it at the corner pharmacy, no, do not get it there. That's the kind of stuff you use when you go to the gynecologist and things of that nature. You got to get the real stuff that's made for sexual pleasure, because it's a totally different animal altogether.
Yeah, there's lots of chemicals in there that are caustic to the vaginal tissues, and even though it seems like they're lubed up, they're actually being dried out chemically. So we do that. What can a man do to help a woman regain her wow factor?
Well, one of the first things I would say to gentlemen is to pay attention to her. And when I say pay attention to her, I'm talking about when you're together, you know, giving undivided attention, as well as complimenting, right? And when I say complimenting, don't make it as shallow as, oh, you know, those are, is that a new top that you're wearing or something like that? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're with a woman, share with her how she makes you feel, right? Share with her, you know, whenever you're with her, she makes you smile. Whenever you're together, you love her energy. And what happens is when you're doing certain things like that, and then listen to what it is that she likes. And then what happens is from there, you can then do that pleasurable thing for your partner or encourage her to do more, right? So like, for example, a lot of men say they would love for their lady to wear more lingerie, like they did in the beginning of their relationship. But she may feel uncomfortable because she may have gained maybe a little bit of weight, right? So she doesn't feel as comfortable. So her wow factor within her mind has gone bye-bye, right? So, but what happens is when a man shares with his woman that, you know what, sweetheart, I love you the way that you are, because you are a voluptuous woman, and things of that nature, to make her feel comfortable. And then if you like, I'm just going on the lingerie thing. I'm just going to kind of stay with that. Then you can ask your partner's like, what would she like that makes her feel special and her feel sassy and juicy? And listen to what she says. And if she says, right now, I know I used to wear lingerie, but how my body is, but I can possibly do a negligee. Then go out shopping together with your partner. And then go ahead. She said that's what she feels comfortable in. Then when you go shopping with your partner, encourage her and say, oh my God, this will look beautiful on you, and everything else like that. And so, but don't nag her. Do not nag her, because how do you feel when you get nagged? Guys don't like getting nagged too. But if you're constantly harping versus encouraging, it's going to have the opposite effect. Then she's going to have resistance and she won't do it because she doesn't feel that she's being seen and heard. So here's about encouraging her, listening to what she says, and then going along with her to actually bring it about. And then when she does it, she's going to feel better about herself, and then you're going to be happy. And then when she sees the reaction when the two of you are together, that then is going to give her enough courage and confidence to take it to the next level next time. So this is, and then it'll slowly build back up. And then here's the interesting thing that also happens, especially with women, because women are so concerned about their weight. I hear this all the time. Mm-hmm. Then when they start having a good time, and then they see how their partner is accepting them, how they are, it's kind of crazy how the weight just starts to drop off. Because what happens is they're focused on being happy, they're focused on enjoying versus focusing on, oh my God, I don't look good anymore. Oh my God, I gained 10 pounds. Oh my God, their mind isn't there. And when their mind isn't there, focusing on what they don't like about their body, they actually start losing the weight and they end up getting the body that they want. Mm-hmm. So that's how it works out. Yes.
So you talk about the 4 pillars of love. Yes. And what are those, and what is and how do they connect to the man code formula?
All right. So the 4 pillars of love are, they are this. The 4 pillars are mental, emotional, physical, and sexual. Those are the 4 pillars of love, right? And that are the foundation of every relationship. So I want you to think about it this way. Think of it like you're sitting on a chair, like the chair I'm sitting on right now has 4 legs, a 4-legged chair. The 4 pillars of love work the same way. Now, the comfort zone, the traditional comfort zone for women, are the mental and the emotional. That's driven by our estrogen. We can do backstrokes and all that, right? And the physical and the sexual is a man's comfort zone because it's driven by their testosterone, right? And things of that nature, and that yin yang of how they come together. So what happens, like a 4-legged chair, you've sat on a wonky chair where one leg isn't literally level, it'll still support you. So the 4 pillars of love are the same exact way. They don't have to all be evened out, but here's one thing. If you were to sit on a chair and one of the legs is broken, what's going to happen when you sit on that chair? You're going to literally fall right off on the other side. So the 4 pillars of love are the same exact way. A pillar can't be broken. And in most relationships, many times the pillars that are broken are either the emotional pillar is broken or the sexual pillar is broken, right? Respectively, in the opposite sex. So many times for women, the sexual pillar is broken, and many times for men, the emotional pillar is broken, where it doesn't allow for a relationship to be sustainable. So what happens is those are the 4 pillars of love and kind of like the orbit that you're in. Now, the man code is, that's what I call is the secret to understanding men with the man code and to get that commitment. And so what I teach this, and so here's how the man code works out and is attached to the 4 pillars of love. So it works like this. So in terms of how to understand a man, the first thing is a man needs that mental stimulation. It starts first in the mind, right? With everybody. And it's also the same way with women. And a lot of women think men are just, oh, sex is the primary thing. Actually, no. Sex isn't the primary thing. You know, what happens, that's very shallow. And a lot of men are not that shallow. Some are, but a lot of men aren't. So the first thing is the mental stimulation, getting into a man's head. One, he wants to know, are you interesting? Do you have confidence? Are you engaging? Are you interesting enough that he will want to get to know you? Do you understand men so he can be more relaxed around you and having engaging conversation? And what happens is that makes a man interested to get to know you. And then when you combine that with the next part, which is your woman's feminine seduction, that's hitting the sexual pillar, right? So what happens is with a man code, when he gets the mental stimulation, combining that with a woman's seduction and sex appeal, it makes a man feel good about himself when he's in a woman's presence. And when a man feels good about himself when he is in a woman's presence, he will want that more and more and more, which then leads to the physical intimacy. Now, physical intimacy is also physical touch, but physical intimacy more is about a man is allowing you into his castle. He is allowing you to see, his social circles, his friends, his environment, what even his work, his aspirations and his dreams. That's the physical intimacy. And if everything is still rocking there, it leads very quickly to the emotional connection, which is gate number 4. That is where the vulnerability comes out. That is where he introduces you to family. If he has children, you get to meet his children. So it's a layer deeper that's there. And so then when you hit that emotional connection part and all of that is going, a man is vulnerable in your presence because he trusts you. You're his confidant. That leads to the commitment. That leads to the commitment with most men. And that can happen in a span of a couple of months or a couple of years. It just depends on the two people that are involved in the relationship. And so what happens is that, that's like the man code that I teach. So you can tell me how good I did with that one, right? Because you're a dude, right? So you can tell me how close I am.
I think you're right on. I think that men are not. Most men, I mean, obviously, there's always exceptions, so you can't say say like 100%, but most men are not as shallow as some people may think they are. Even the ones that seem like they are, they're not that way. When you start to communicate with them, you find out that they're wow, I didn't realize that this person had this whole different side to them, because their other side might be whatever, might be very dominant in terms of how they portray themselves in the world, but they have a very different side when you actually have a conversation with them. So Stacey, you have a number of programs that you have for women. You work mostly with women, and could you tell us about those? And also we're going to put a link to your website, and it's a fun website. It's called the Vixen
Academy.
Vixen Academy. That's a great one. And you have like a undergraduate, a master's, and a PhD degree in that academy.
Well, what happened? Well, I'm working. Well, when the ladies do my signature programs, they're kind of like getting the PhD version of that. And Vixen actually stands for something. Now, everyone knows Vixen is a female fox, so that's what it says in Webster's dictionary. But in my Vixen world, this is what Vixen stands for. It's a woman who is vivacious. She's intelligent. She's extraordinary in her own right. She feels empowered, but she also knows when to be naughty as well as nice. And that is a vixen. Because you know what? Being a good girl, that is totally overplayed and there's no fun in that. And I also work with men as well in certain areas. Like when I do work with men, usually it's for those that have low T or ED. They're working with their medical doctor, getting either testosterone shots and things of that nature. And then I work with them on the mental and the emotional, coming from tantric principles to work their body so that they can also enjoy their sex lives more. So when I'm working with a lot of men, I do that. And in terms of when I'm working with my ladies, I have my Love Goddess program, which is confidence training in the art of seduction and charisma from the bedroom to the boardroom. And let me actually share with people what the true feminine power definition of seduction is. Because I know that's like a word, seduction is a word that has like people inflamed, sometimes when you say that, people have the deer in headlights look, but this is what true feminine seduction is. It's having the keen ability to entice someone to do something that they want to do anyway. And it's because you create a safe place for them to come out and play with you. And in that safety, they take off their mask that they show the world, but they will show you their genuine self. And that is what true seduction is. So it's a win-win situation. So yeah, so that's what my love goddess teaches. So, you asked that question early on in terms of, the masculine energies. Well, it teaches ladies to be charismatic leaders during the day, but enchanting lovers at night, coming from their feminine power so they can rock it in both life as well as love. So that's like for self-mastery for my ladies. And my other one is manifest your man, which is our relationship GPS system, so you can attract and keep the one that you love. And I have like an introductory thing that I'm making available to people that are listening to this. It's my Get Him to Commit, which is a training that I did, which gives you little morsels out of my Manifest Your Man program. So if people wanted to check what that's all about, I'm making that available to everyone as well. And so they can listen to that complimentary.
Okay. And we'll put it in the program notes, but where do they find it? Where will they find that? It'll be on your site?
Yes. So what happens is there's the link they'll be giving you, and then they'll be able to do that. And there'll be more information as well that I can provide.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Stacey, this has been a most enjoyable conversation. It's been very enlightening, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners will hear stuff that they have not heard, or may hear it in a way that makes it much more accessible and useful to them in terms of action points. Yes. Because I think consuming knowledge without action is actually pointless. Yes. And we've all done that. I mean, I've got, I got books behind me where I've gone to courses and took a bunch of notes, and then I got home and nothing happened. And what was the point? There was no point to it. But I think that there's a lot of actual items, and I think people would benefit by going to your website, checking it out, and if it's a fit, and I think for many people it would be, especially if they're looking to grow this part of their life, be very worthwhile to have you as an experienced coach in it.
Oh, and I would love to. And there are always ways, there are always possibilities. So this is about, bringing fun and enjoyment back into your relationships, whether you're a free agent or whether you're coupled, it doesn't matter. And this is something that's actually your birthright. To be happy.
That's right. All right. All right. Well, thank you again. This is Oris, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com. Remember, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love. Until next time, and be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. If you like what you heard and learned, then be sure to do 3 things. 1, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. 2, share this with someone who may need to hear it also, and it may be your significant other. And 3, review it. Give me a good review. If you didn't like it, give me a bad review. I don't care. Just review me. And be sure to get my free video on 3 ways to get laid more frequently without begging. Opt in at oldguytalks.com. Don't be that guy that just takes in the information. Take action. Without action, you're not going to get the results you want.